sweared like a sailor. Meghan preparing for getaway departure out of US as do a number on the middle. One of the main reasons Meghan Markle and Prince Harry moved to the US was to stretch their advocacy across the pond and focus their energies on the issues that matter most to them. Paid parental leave has been a big issue for the Sussexes, since in the US there is no national paid family leave policy, something that's been blamed for the recent worker shortage, among other massive problems. This week, Duchess Meghan penned an impassioned open letter to the Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer, DNY, and House Speaker Nancy Pelosi, DMD, in which she called herself an engaged citizen and a parent and advocating for a national paid leave policy. I'm writing to you on behalf of millions of American families who are using their voices to say that comprehensive paid leave should not be a place to compromise or negotiate, she wrote. In fact, most nations already have paid leave policies in place. It's not exactly a controversial stance to write a letter in favor of paid leave to the two politicians in charge of Congress. But some Republicans have since spoken out about Meghan's advocacy, telling her to stay in her lane when it comes to political issues. Ms. Akua pulled no punches as she accused the Duchess of interfering in American politics with her insipid letter. The decision sparked a furious backlash from members of the Republican Party who were not impressed and told her to stick to acting. Ms. Akua said, in the letter she talked about times in her childhood where she was forced to participate in middle-class activities like getting a job and also eating at a salad bar. She said, well, we all know she went to a private school and her parents weren't short of a bob or two. The host went on to highlight a statement from Republican Jason Smith who accused Meghan of interference in American politics. The enraged Republican went on to ask why the royal family does not simply strip her and Harry officially of their titles. The letter Meghan wrote called for a strong paid leave program for every American that's guaranteed, accessible and encouraged without stigma or penalty. She acknowledged that since the beginning of the pandemic, millions of women had dropped out of the workforce in order to provide for their children. Meghan also spoke of her own childhood, saying that she had felt lucky to be eating a $4.99 salad at Sizzler as she was aware of how hard her parents had worked. She added, I started working at the local frozen yogurt shop at the age of 13. I waited tables, babysat, and piecemeal jobs together to cover odds and ends. I worked all my life and saved when and where I could, but even that was a luxury, because usually it was about making ends meet and having enough to pay my rent and put gas in my car. The US remains one of the only developed countries without a national paid parental leave policy, with only 9 states and Washington, D.C. implementing some form of paid leave policy. In a larger sense, it's hard to really see why Meghan's letter is political. Defenders say that her purpose was to advocate for human rights, and there is nothing inherently Democratic or Republican about paid family leave, or human rights more generally. It's been a traditionally bipartisan issue, and was even a major point for Ivanka Trump's advocacy during her time as a White House advisor for her father. But it's interesting that some Republicans in Congress have a knee-jerk reaction to otherwise regular human rights issues, seeing them as somehow antithetical to their views. Similarly, looking at the rejection of hate speech as somehow politically opposed to Republican ideology is telling. No, Prince Harry's message, like Meghan's letter, did not mention any politicians or political party by name. In fact, there was probably a time not so long ago when rejecting hate speech was something most Americans would agree is a good thing to do actually. So by the logic presented by Rep. Smith, Republicans see hate speech as so central to their platform that rejecting hate speech is a rejection of republicanism itself. I guess what I'm saying is, that's a pretty big cell phone and maybe politicians should just not weigh in on the royal family in the future.